we don't have those things well done, well, then what people do is they fall back on, burning platform style communication. We have to change. The market is changing. Our business is changing, blah, blah, blah. That actually isn't helpful at all. And then the other thing they do is they talk about very generic future states. We want to make the customer experience better. We want to put the student at the center of everything, right? Like, again, it doesn't actually help me understand.
Welcome everyone back to another episode of CRMprov. I'm your host, Mickey Baines. I can truly say this is this episode I've been waiting for more to get underway and get recorded more than any other episode since we launched this podcast. CRMprov, our goal is to be your go-to higher ed CRM podcast. We like to look at the use of CRM from all angles, really through the lens of an end user and a functional owner, to ensure that there are easy paths to growth within CRM. The CRM is there to support enrollment and student success teams as they engage and retain their students. But that's not easy. Sometimes implementing a CRM is not an easy thing. But it happens all the time. We're always implementing CRMs. I see that in my company and my work. We do that with multiple schools every year. But what I would suggest is that the real hard part isn't just implementing the technology or expanding the technology. The hard part is ensuring that what you're doing to implement it really is in place to help you achieve the outcomes that you or maybe someone ahead of you on the organizational chart is expecting with the tool. Successfully implementing tools is a type of transformation. What really jumped out to me as I reflected over the holidays and looked back at the last several years of my work and the work that we do to help clients select technology, implement, or expand in their CRM, it's the lack of a really deep vision to help define exactly what your technology is designed to support, how it will support your teams, your institution, and to what end those efforts should go. Missing that first step in building out a vision can really kill a transformation. Over the past 6 weeks, my guest today and I, John, we've been chatting and talking about his new book. So I'm really excited to talk about the book and to introduce John. John's new book is coming out in February. It's all about preparing for and executing your transformation. The book, Big Bet Leadership, is a true playbook for transformations. Now, everyone listen, hit pause. Go grab a notebook, laptop, iPad, whatever device you want to use to take notes. And if you're listening to this from a car or wherever else, go ahead and click to download the episode so you can find it easily when you're able to go back and listen and then take notes, because you're going to want notes for this. Our guest today, John Rossman. John is an expert on digital transformation, leadership, and business reinvention. He's consulted with some big names, folks, Novartis, Fidelity Investments, Microsoft, Walmart, Nordstrom. He served as a senior innovation advisor at T-Mobile and a senior technology advisor to the Gates Foundation. He's an operator and builder whose love is diving into business problems and customer needs to design optimal solutions and create new business opportunities. He's the author of 4 books. The 4th, which we just mentioned, is coming out in February, but it also includes a couple of bestsellers, Think Like Amazon and The Amazon Way. And if you're wondering why those books are about Amazon, that's because he spent some of his professional time working at Amazon in the early days, helping to launch their third-party merchant platform and program. That's not a small feat. And I'm sure, John, that was probably a pivotal experience that helped you launch and focus your work around consulting and transformations. So let's find out.
Yeah, Mickey, thanks for having me on CRMprov, and thanks for the introduction. Amazon was a really pivotal point in time, both for the company and for myself. I was there for about 4 years, so early 2002 through late 2005. And I always joke, it's like for the first time in my life, I paid attention in class. And it really was a combination of critical thinking with great execution, surrounded by an awareness of, we're trying to accomplish both some short-term things, but never sacrificing long-term value. And a lot of those concepts went into the Amazon leadership principles I was a partner at Arthur Andersen before I joined Amazon. I had a partner, a long-term partner at Arthur Andersen, and then after I left Amazon, we were partners together for 12 years at Alvarez and Marcel. And Steve always comments like, John, Amazon transformed how you operate. And he goes, the thing I see you always working to do is to clarify and simplify the situation. And so, not ironically, clarifying and simplifying is part of big bet leadership. But yeah, Amazon was a ton of fun and great people. And, we built a fairly legendary business there.
Fairly. That's an understatement. Let's just say understatement of the year. I know we're early in the year, but I don't know if we'll beat that one. So I'd like to talk. Let's just dive in first about the book, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Why big bet leadership now? What was a spark for you to write this book?
So the subtitle of the book is Your Transformation Playbook for Winning in the Hyper Digital Era. And I'll break open two parts of that subtitle. One of the gaps I noticed as I got to do so many keynotes and workshops and client engagements with clients was that while mid-level management had their playbooks primarily around kind of agile approaches to transformation, senior leadership actually didn't know how they needed to operate different for innovation, change programs, transformations than their normal operating model work. And so we noticed a market gap there. And that market gap is also demonstrated by the fact that, depending upon your measure, 85 to 95% of all of these types of transformations, these big bets, they fail to deliver either on time or scope or on budget, or more importantly, on impact relative to why we undertook the transformation. So there's 2 points on kind of the gap there for senior leaders. So this book is targeted senior leaders to help them do their job in terms of this transformation. But then the second part of the subtitle is to win in the hyper digital era. I think it's a low standard, a low ambition to think, to survive digital, disruption or whatever. It's like you have to shoot for winning, and I actually can break open what I mean by winning if we want to and everything. But um, the hypothesis of the book is that we are at the dawn of an entire new age, the age of AI. I call it the hyper digital era, where what's going to be different from the last 25 years of digital transformation is that primarily the operating model and the cost model, the productivity equation of the inputs versus the outputs of an organization, especially white collar organizations, there's going to be opportunity to 10 to 100x that type of operating model in companies. So some companies are going to get that, and they're going to be aggressive and ride that opportunity. This book is meant for those leaders. A lot of companies just will not have the aggressive nature, the understanding that the riskiest position they can take is more or less just incremental changes. And I believe that they are likely going to go from whatever position they're at to a worse position, perhaps dramatically worse position over the next 10 to 15 years. So that's kind of the setup for the book on why the book is needed now. And that's kind of articulated in the preface of the book as to why we wrote the book and why it's needed now.
I think that's great. Now, what I want to do is for our conversation, I want to give us a different angle or lens, maybe, for the conversation. So I'm going to give us a topic or a scenario, and we'll ask questions based on that scenario. And that scenario, I want to focus a little bit more on higher education, since that's going to be the bulk of our listeners here.
This sounds like a test, which is completely perfect for
Perfect.
a
That's right.
conversation on higher ed and everything. Okay, so
Yes.
I was a straight B minus student, so hopefully I can at least hit that bar in my answers here. Okay.
I'm confident we can. So just last week, Inside Higher Ed dropped an article about the struggles of community colleges, specifically around their ability to effectively adopt technology. So I think that connects with transformations, and I'll just say in that article, and I'll give a little bit of a quote here from one of the folks that were in the article. So Huri Kalamkarian, a senior research associate at the Community College Research Center at Columbia University's Teacher College, that's a lot, pointed out, was talking a lot about the need for buy-in with technology to help drive adoption. And in that, he pointed a couple questions that schools should be asking. Do you have a vision for the technology? How are you going to use the technology? How will it improve the student experience? And then once you have those answers, what he was suggesting was then you can get staff on board in terms of designing and using the technology. And I would agree. We focus very much on that as we're kicking off a project. We talk a lot about vision.
What couldn't you agree
And
with
so
in
I
that?
guess, I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, what couldn't you agree with that
Oh, that's right.
assessment?
There's nothing I could not agree with. And so I guess as we think about vision, where does vision fit in for transformations? And can you tell us maybe from your experience, or maybe from your experience at Amazon, how would Amazon approach building a vision for their transformation?
Yeah. So this is, to just back equate some of these terms, right? So a big bet is any type of initiative, transformation strategy that we think has the potential for high impact in our business, in our organization, or to our customers. But we know that there's material risk relative to having that impact and in execution. That's the nature of a bet. The first problem is most people don't recognize that these are actually bets. Like those notions of this is a hypothesis get left behind really, really early. And we essentially take most things as fact and stuff. But that's a slightly separate story. The problem with most of these transformations is they start off with the term I use, a fuzzy definition of what the problem or problems, the use cases are that we are trying to dramatically reinvent. We're fuzzier about our hypothesis for what we think the future experience, the future state, the future operating model is. And because we have a fuzzy understanding of both the problem as well as what the future state is, one of the things, but only one of the things that impacts is our ability to actually communicate well to our stakeholders relative to the journey that we're on. Because we don't have those things well done, well, then what people do is they fall back on burning platform style communication. We have to change, the market is changing, our business is changing, blah blah blah. That actually isn't helpful at all. We just assume we are all aware of that. And then the other thing they do is they talk about very generic future states. We want to make the customer experience better. We want to put the student at the center of everything, right? Like, again, good concepts, you can't argue with it, but it doesn't actually help me understand the nature of the change or what my role is in making that change happen. So a big part of big bet leadership is helping to create clarity relative to the problem we are trying to fix and what our hypothesis is as far as that future state, and what the business impact is relative to that. Financial, operational business impact is stated as hypotheses, right? Then we can actually debate these things, we can communicate, we can create the shortest path in order to test and refine these. We call this the big bet vector. And that big bet vector, the problem, the future state, the shortest distance between those two, is really the central framework through which then we execute what we call the 3 critical habits of big bet legends. And my co-author and I, Kevin McCaffrey, we worked for a couple of these individuals. We studied the others, and so the ones that we reference in the book are leaders that we think have pulled off multiple transitions and transformations and big bets. So those people that we talked about are Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, John Ledger of T-Mobile, and Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. And what we think is different about those big bet legends is that they have three critical habits. Those three critical habits are they create clarity, they maintain velocity, and they accelerate risk and value. And then throughout the rest of the book, we kind of bring all these tools and actions to demonstrate how you do that at key moments for senior executives to do their job and success. So in the story that we're talking about here, my guess is, again, they did not have clarity. Therefore, you can't communicate when you don't have clarity.
So you made that you made a comment about the putting the student at the center, and I will say not necessarily from vision statements specific to transformation. I don't see many higher ed institutions where we jump in or where we've come in after a project started or was completed where I can say, let's look at the project plan where you actually see what the vision was. I don't know that I've ever found that. But institutions do typically have a vision statement. And the one thing I've always thought and said about a vision statement, is the vagueness that might be surrounding that statement, that you could take the institution's name out of it and probably find 15 to 100 others, plug in, and it would read as if it was that institution statement. And it's not that it's not a good statement, it's what follows that, to me, where the clarity comes in. We can put a statement that sets the course of the future, and then the detail behind it's what really matters. And finding that detail with the clarity that you just mentioned is the hard part. So I'm all about visions. My team, anyone that works with me knows I love visions. So that really really resonated with me. Now, you
And
mentioned
let me
earlier.
just build
Go ahead.
let me just build on that for a moment, which is
Yeah.
you're undertaking this transformation for hopefully some very good reasons, right? Something isn't working the way it needs to work to be viable, to be whatever level you want to be at. And what so often the problem with these mission statements or goals like that is that we don't seek the truth. Like, where are we failing today? That's the whole problem, orientation, and getting really crisp on not the low level problems, but what's the fundamental truth seeking root cause problem that we are trying to solve. Like, what is it that's so worthy that we're going to spend all this time, money, and attention and resources to go fix it? And sometimes these transformations are just undertaken because we have to sound like we're transforming and everything. You see that a lot in AI right now and everything. Like, we don't know why, but our board is asking us what our AI strategy is, and our stakeholders want to hear that we're undertaking an AI strategy. So let's just undertake an AI strategy here, right? Deeply understanding your customer and understanding their journey, bigger than, broader than just your service or your product, by the way, like the longitudinal nature of what they're trying to get done, and then how you deliver relative to that. That problem space orientation is oftentimes where well-meaning, semi-successful legacy organizations, they've created a culture where crisp debate and evaluation of where we're failing, like that actually isn't acceptable. Like, you can get in trouble for actually trying to get to root cause and problem diagnosis. I've seen that happen in multiple cases. And so, that's part of where this framework helps, is in a respectful, polite way. You have this notion of kind of really identifying the what sucks, right? And when you put it in that phrase, what you don't focus on is the little trivial stuff. You really go to, like, okay, what is it that really sucks about, whether it's the customer experience or employee experience or this operational experience that you're diving down. And, that's like you always say, it's like, recognition is the start of any progress that we make, right? And it's amazing how many companies, teams, leaders are unwilling to be self-critical and to really dive deep on, what is the valuable problem to go solve.
Hi, everyone. I know we're jumping in here, but the conversation was so good, it just kept going. So we've broken it in 2 parts. So I hope you enjoyed part 1. Early next week, we'll drop part 2. See you then.